ADEC's Smart Start program offers first-time practice owners their deepest discounts on equipment and furniture for 2 years, plus other savings and complimentary services. Ask your ADEC rep for details and start smart with ADEC. Join Doctors Savanah Craig and Ronnetta Sartor as we navigate life beyond graduation. Real conversations about forging our own paths in our early years in our careers. There's a reason it's called practicing dentistry. All right, welcome back to another episode of Beyond Graduation. I am Savanah Craig, and with me as always,
I'm Ronnetta Sartor. Happy to be back with you guys.
So we are rolling on season 4, and we have been reaching out to our friends and followers and dental students that we know to try to get some topics that y'all want to hear about. So shout out to Brandon from LeCom, just talking about some interactions that they have had in clinic, talking to some adjunct faculty about treatment planning and different treatment planning philosophies and what that looks like in dental school and in world outside. So today we're going to be talking about how being told insurance will never cover that and what that might look like. Insurance is a big topic, but we'll try to cover it as best as we can.
For sure. I think this is going to be interesting because the way that our offices handle insurance is completely different.
Absolutely.
But in addition to that, maybe we could rewind to when we were in dental school. Not so much in dental school, but rewind to when we just left residency and started in practice and what that transition looked like from not needing to really think about insurance to, now this is a whole game that you have to learn. In school, we didn't learn anything about it. What was that, I guess, transition and experience like for you?
I'm glad that you said you didn't learn anything about it either, because that has been my number one fight. Coding is hard, and I think we could have spent so much time in school going over insurance codes. We got a taste of it in residency. I think they had, more. I'm glad that I had that transition, because I think going directly into private practice with no insurance experience at all would have been very overwhelming. But so learning how to code, so my practice is heavily in contract with a lot of insurance. So it's a very different ball game than what I was used to playing. And arguably the biggest part or the biggest fight that I get in daily is writing insurance narratives or trying to explain insurance coverage to my team and my patients. And I don't know enough about it a lot of times. So finding my office manager and being very grateful that they have a lot of knowledge and training about how, we could talk about this for literally the whole season. But yeah, it's super overwhelming and so unnecessarily complicated.
Oh, yeah. And you and I kind of laughed about this before, but when, we both did the same program, but different years, of course. But in residency, one of our program directors always said that dental insurance is different. It's not like medical insurance.
Absolutely.
In fact, think of it as a gift card or a coupon, but it's a gift card or a coupon that has stipulations on it. You only have X amount of dollars, but you can only spend it this way or that way. Oh, you need a crown? Okay. You can only get 50% of the crown paid for with this gift card or coupon. And then you've got to pay the rest out of your pocket, if that's a good insurance, so to speak. And so I think a lot of it is letting our patients know that, we try our best to work with their insurance and everything. I was very much like you, coming straight out of school. The group practice that I was in, we were in network with probably just about every insurance out
Mm-hmm.
there. And so what that meant is that, insurance could say that they weren't going to cover XYZ. And sometimes it also means that if they won't cover it, you cannot charge the patient for it. You really have to, if you are getting out of school or residency and you're joining a practice that wants you to go, become an in-network provider with certain insurance companies, it's important that you read those contracts with the insurance company to know what you can and can't do. And it's tough because if you're joining an office that's in network with a lot of insurances, it can take a long time to
Yeah.
read through all of that and then recall, okay, this insurance does this and that and so on.
Yep. We had a patient the other day who knew their plan, sort of, and she was like, I know that I get $2,000. This should cover this root canal and crown, A plus B equals C. And we were like, yes, but your insurance only covers 60% of the crown and 60%, whatever. And so it's not just this chunk of money that you can put where you want. And she was very upset about that. And we were like, we are also upset about that. I would love for you to be able to dictate what you do with this $2,000 that your insurance company gives you so that you and I could make this decision, but that's not the contract you entered into by accepting, with your employer or however you got this insurance. And she was very frustrated, and I was like, I am also frustrated, but this is the game.
I had a patient this week, and she's a school teacher, and she's the sweetest thing, but she said, like, I know lots of things and I study lots of things. And she was like, for the life of me, I still cannot figure out this dental insurance thing. Like,
You said me too.
yeah, I'm like, we all are trying to figure it out, but it's almost like auto insurance, right? Or any type of insurance you can think of. I tell patients all the time, if insurance can find a way to not pay, oh yeah, that's a golden day for them.
Right.
And so as providers, pretty much we almost have to play the game with them. And I mentioned being in network with insurances. So I also want to touch on if you're an office that is out of network with insurance, because that's a little bit of a different.
So for a brief summary, and I'm still not the best at this, in network. So for patients out there, for dentists out there, patients will call and say, do you accept my insurance? That is not necessarily the right question, because even if you are in network or out of network, you may accept their insurance benefits, right?
Very true.
So in network for me, my office is in contract with these various insurance companies, which says we agree to their terms. They get to set the fees that we can charge for certain procedures. They get to set what they pay on those procedures, which may be different, which is one of the most confusing things. So, for example, surgical extraction, say our fee is $300. Your insurance company, I don't know, for easy math, might say we pay $100 for that extraction, or we allow you to charge, I should say, $100 for that extraction. But then they may only pay you $90 for that. You know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily one-to-one. And sometimes, depending on the insurance, you can then bill the patient for that $10, and sometimes you can't. And everyone is different. Versus being out of network, which I would say most people that say their fee for service are accept out of network benefits. Is that fair to say, Ronnetta?
I think there, because I was just on Facebook the other day and I saw people asking the question of what's the difference between fee for service and out of network. I kind of don't want to get into that.
Okay, that's another can of worms.
That's a whole can of worms.
Okay, all right.
But I think I can speak for out of network because my now office that we are an out of network practice.
Got it. Okay.
And so, Savanah, you're right in that when a patient calls and says, do you accept my insurance? It means different things for your office versus mine's, right?
Right.
Because you guys have a contract with an insurance company. I do not have a contract with any insurance company. For our patients, we then ask them the question, do you know if your insurance allows you to go to an out of network office, or do you know if your insurance provides you with out of network benefits? A lot of insurance companies, do have that. And so the answer to the question when they call and ask, do you accept my insurance? The majority of the time, the answer is yes. It just means that I do not negotiate, and the insurance company does not negotiate what the fee is.
Mm-hmm.
So if Dr. Ronnetta says that the fee for an extraction, like you said, is $100, then insurance can't tell me that the fee's not going to be $100. They can, they have their percentages of what they would pay on that. And the patient then knows that, okay, whatever my insurance doesn't cover is my responsibility.
Right. So in that same example, if the insurance company out of network benefits are $90 towards that $100 extraction, you can for sure bill the patient for that other $10.
Right, and they do. And so in my office, if that patient comes in, they'll pay the $10 on the day that the services are rendered. We will file the claim for the patient, and the insurance company will then send us a check for the remainder.
Right.
Every insurance company does not do that. So that's a whole nother can of worms too. But I know that our Ignite DDS family down at LECOM, our LECOM men, they had specific questions about, being told that, when you get out, insurance won't cover that if, it's not seen radiographically. So an example of that Savanah and I have thought of is if you have a crown on number 8 and it's got recurrent caries, but you can't quite see it on a radiograph, but intraorally you could see it. Or if there's a filling on number 30 and, the filling is breaking down, but you can't see it radiographically, but intraorally you can. So, Savanah, tell me how you handle those situations in your office.
Yeah. So thankfully, we live in the world of digital photography. So your intraoral photos are going to be your best friend. And then the next best is detailed clinical notes on the day of the exam.
For sure.
For us, so as to the best of my knowledge, we send those claims to the insurance company with the radiographs, with the intraoral photos, all of those things on the day we're saying Miss Smith needs a new crown on number 8. We send as much information as we can at that first interaction with the insurance company. If they send back and say, nah, we don't agree, we will then write narratives. And so we do spend quite a bit of time writing narratives to explain in more detail what was seen clinically and why this is a concern down the line. And I try to explain to the insurance company what will happen if this is not treated. Hey, then you might end up paying for a root canal down the road or whatever, because they're all trying to save money. The other thing that we are learning is a lot of insurance companies are using AI to look at those initial claims and try to weed things out. A lot of that we can get into this whole SRP debacle because we're having a very hard time with SRP. But if your radiographs aren't clear in a way that the computer can read it, you might just get the claim denied. You know what I mean? Like there's not always humans looking at these things on those initial interactions. So appealing the claim, I think, in my experience, gets you to a human quicker. What's your experience been?
So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, really. It's documentation. It's your note. It's all of those things. So 100%, just about anything that needs to get done or any issue we find with a patient in our office, we take an intraoral photo of.
Yeah.
And so when we file that claim to insurance, like you said, pretty much my narrative is my clinical note. I send in my entire clinical note detailing what we saw intraorally, what we saw radiographically. We send the intraoral photo, we send the radiograph, as much information as you can,
Yep.
saying you do. But I think ultimately in dentistry, we have to get to a place where we also like explain to the patient too that, you know, just because insurance says that they may not pay for it, or just because insurance won't pay for it, does not mean that you need this treatment any less.
Took the words out of my mouth.
And so, if you have decay, whether or not insurance is going to pay for the restoration, the decay is still there and it's still a problem that is going to worsen without treatment. And I know, probably coming right out of school, it may not be an easy conversation to have, but you find a way to, with compassion, let the patient know, hey, this is what I see going on in the mouth, this is the treatment. And I know for some patients, they really depend on insurance paying their portion to get it taken care of. But ultimately, I think as a profession, we have to get to the point where we aren't so reliant on what insurance will pay, and don't be scared to like let your patient know what the diagnosis and treatment is based on whether or not insurance will pay. Because ultimately, we take an oath to do no harm, and if we're not being 100% honest with those patients about what the diagnosis is, what the treatment options are, and that means all of the treatment options, and what could happen if it's left untreated, as well as what happens and risks and benefits of treating it, then we're not doing our job and duty as a dental professional.
100%. And a lot of times the conversation is the biggest one that I am getting pushback on a lot of times is, large restorations with recurrent decay and this needs a crown. And why can't you just place a new filling? Or there's a million scenarios, but letting the patient know, hey, you still, and it depends on the patient, right? Do I still believe you need this crown? Yes. If we do not do the crown, we are at risk for fracture. I always tell patients, insanity is doing the same thing again. If we already had a big filling and it's not being successful, why would we put a new big filling in? Some patients still just want that big filling, and it's an ethical choice as you, the provider, of are you willing to do another large restoration? Is the patient really aware of the risks of doing that? Or is no treatment a better option? And sometimes that's a hard personal decision on what you need to do. But the not letting insurance tell you how to do your job is very tricky sometimes.
It is very tricky, and I think it's why we see a huge wave of dentists that are trying to go out of network with insurance companies, because it's almost like our hands are tied.
Can be.
Can be, for sure.
For us, I think it also really depends where you're practicing. In network, out of network, how all of those things work. For us, being in network really draws a lot of patients to the practice. And I do think we are getting more people in the door and getting them exams and getting things looked at. And so sometimes in dentistry, I think we demonize the practices that are in network. And there are games you can play to make it more lucrative. And like I said, we write a lot of narratives to fight for our patients, but I'm not going to let them make me do substandard care for people either.
For sure, for sure, for sure.
This insurance topic we could talk about for the entire season. So if you have any other questions out there about this topic in particular, please let us know in the comments, because there are so many layers to this, and not that we're claiming to be the insurance experts at all, but I think as a new grad, this can be a really big and confusing topic, but it's super important because it's how you get paid. It's how you
For sure.
make your money.
For sure. Super important. Yeah, so definitely reach out to us and let us know what your experience has been with it, or if you have any other questions. We hope that this helps. And as always, we will see you all next time. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond Graduation. If you enjoyed this week's episode, be sure to share it with a friend. Connect with us on social media at Savanah Craig DDS and at Dr._Sartor. And remember, you are not alone on this journey.
ADEC certified pre-owned equipment is a sustainable, affordable choice that makes genuine ADEC equipment available to every doctor. Each package is sold on a first-come, first-served basis. So, if you see one you like, contact your dealer. For more information, go to www.adec.com/find a dealer. Thank you for listening to Beyond Graduation, brought to you by Ignite DDS and Future Dentists. This episode was sponsored by Ignite DDS Coaching. We build self-determined futures. For more information, please reach out to the Ignite DDS team.